Hi class and hi parents and guardians. Thanks so much for watching this flipped lesson. Today we're going to talk about how we get ready for going out to play in the winter. So in the winter, since it's cold outside and there's so much snow, we need to have the proper clothing and we need to put the proper clothing on to go outside. So we have snow pants, jackets, we have mitts, we have a hat, we have a scarf, and we need to make sure that we put all of that on before we go outside. So let's think about something. When we get ready for school in the morning, what kind of order do we put our clothes on in? So for me, when I go to work, I put on my t-shirt, I put on my pants, I put on my socks, I put on my jacket, and I put on my shoes, and I get ready to go. But I need to remember sometimes that I have to put on my t-shirt before my sweater. If I put on my sweater before my t-shirt, I would have to take it off and put my t-shirt on underneath it. So what I want you to think about while reading this book is, what items of clothing does Froggy sometimes forget when he goes to play out in the snow? And what we're going to do after we read the book is we're going to do an activity that helps us to remember what items of clothing need to go on first when we're getting ready to go outside and play in the snow. This is important because when we're getting ready, we don't want to waste time. We want to get right out and play in the snow. But if we put on our boots before our snow pants, then we have to take our snow pants off or our boots off and then put our snow pants back on and then our boots back on. And if we put on our mitts before we put on our jacket, then we can't zip up our jacket all on our own. So we need to make sure that our mitts go on last. So we're going to focus on reading this book and seeing what kind of mistakes Froggy makes. And then we're going to practice that activity so we can become experts at getting ready for going outside to play in the snow.
Froggy gets dressed. It was cold. Froggy woke up and looked out the window. "Snow, snow," he sang. "I want to play in the snow." "Go back to sleep, Froggy," said Mother. "Don't you know? Frogs are supposed to sleep all winter. Wake up when the snow melts." "No, no," cried Froggy. "I'm awake, awake. I want to go out and play in the snow." So Froggy put on his socks, zoop, pulled on his boots, zoop, put on his hat, zat, tied on his scarf, zwit, tugged on his mitten, zoom, and flopped outside into the snow, flop, flop, flop. "Froggy!" called his mother. "What?" yelled Froggy. "Did you forget to put something on?" Froggy looked down. "Oops!" cried Froggy. "I forgot to put on my pants." He flopped back inside, flop, 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 tugged off his mittens, untied his scarf, took off his hat, pulled off his boots, he left his socks on, and slipped his pants on, zip. Then he pulled on his boots, zoop, put on his hat, zat, tied on his scarf, zwit, tugged on his mitten, zoom, and flopped back outside into the snow, flop, flop, flop. "Froggy!" called his mother. "What?" yelled Froggy. "Did you forget to put something on?" Froggy looked down. "Oops!" he cried. "I forgot to put on my shirt." "And your coat," added Mother. He flopped back inside, flop, 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 tugged off his mittens, untied his scarf, took off his hat, he left his pants, boots, and socks on, and buttoned up his shirt, zoot, zoot, zoot. He snapped on his coat, snap, put on his hat, zat, tied on his scarf, zwit, tucked on his mitten, zoom, flopped back outside into the snow, flop, flop, flop. "Froggy!" called his mother. "What?" yelled Froggy. "Did you forget to put something on?" Froggy looked down. He had on his mittens, he had on his scarf, he had on his coat, he had on his shirt, he had on his pants, he had on his boots, he had on his socks. He reached up. Yep, he had a hat on his head. What could he be missing? "Your underwear!" his mother laughed. "Oops!" cried Froggy, looking more red in the face than green. He flopped back inside, flop, 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 tugged off his mittens, untied his scarf, unsnapped his coat, unbuttoned his shirt, unzipped his pants, pulled off his boots, took off his socks, he left his hat on, and slipped his long johns on with a zap of elastic. He then put one sock, zoop, pulled on one boot, zoop, tugged on 1 minute, zoom, started to tug on the other, and let it drop and said, "I'm too tired," and went back to sleep. Good night, Froggy. Okay, class, so tomorrow what we will be doing is we'll be dressing Froggy. So I'll show you an example of what we're going to do. So students will have this sheet of paper with Froggy on it with his pants on and his shirt on. So what we're going to do is practice putting our clothes on Froggy. So what do you think should go next? I think that first we would put on Froggy's socks. And then our next step might be to put on his snow pants. And once we have his snow pants on, what should we put on next? I think that we should put on his boots, and then we should put on his jacket, and then we can put on his scarf, and then we can put on his hat, and last we want to put on his mittens. And the reason we want to put on his mittens last is so that Froggy has his hands to do up his coat and put on his scarf and put on his hat. His mitts should be the last thing he puts on so that he's able to dress himself with everything else he needs to wear to keep warm. Thank you so much for watching, and extra thanks to the parents and guardians who are watching with their child and helping their learning experience. Thanks so much.